Yo, what's going on, guys? Versal here, and today I'm going to be going on a bit of a rant on why I think Yu-Gi-Oh kind of sucks right now. I'm sure you've seen these kind of videos a lot recently, and there's a good reason for that. A lot of people probably feel the same way that I do. And it's been like 2 weeks since I last posted a video, and that's mostly just because I've just kind of just checked out of the game right now, to be honest. I think we really need a ban list, but even then, I don't know if a ban list is really going to save the game and the direction it's heading in, which I'll kind of talk about in this video, but I'll just kind of jump right into it, cover a bunch of the different problems I think that the game has right now. Start off with just going second in general. Um, and a trend that you'll see a lot lately in the formats, especially like the one that we're currently in, is the one for one kind of hand traps like Ash just kind of are terrible now. They don't do anything because all the decks just play through these very easily. And we can date this back to probably the best example would be Snake Eyes. Because like Snake Eye Ash, just one card, it just does so much. And that's kind of the case for a lot of the decks nowadays with like Ryzeal, Mitsurugi, Malice, etc. And then the problem with that is all the extenders, like Wanted for example, the same thing with the new decks. All these cards are just one card combos and they're also extenders. So when your actual one card combo gets stopped and you just have any of the extenders, you just play through all the hand traps and end in the exact same end board as you would before. So I think extenders really need to be balanced better, because if you have like extenders in your deck, they should have diminishing returns at some point. Because if they're all just doing the same exact thing as your starters, then you're not hand trapping these decks because you need to open like 3 of these just to have a chance. And maybe if you open 2, you might be able to slow them down a little bit, but one of these like one for one hand traps does basically nothing in the modern game unless your opponent drew an extremely weak hand. So everyone hated Snake Eyes format for the most part just because of like how the gameplay loop was, how much hand traps you had to play for them to actually do something. And that's kind of the cycle that we're in now with power creep. All the decks are just kind of just doing this all over again. And that's kind of the format that we've been trapped in with Mitsurugi, Ryzeal, Malice, etc. So since these one for one hand traps aren't very good, that has led everyone to just be main decking all 3 of these, or at least 6 of them for the most part. Because of like Ryzeal, you've been seeing Perulia in the main decks on top of these, just because like the Mitsu Ryzeal deck, if you don't open one of these 3 cards, is almost like impossible to stop. So I just think like these cards are just, I don't know, they're kind of just lazy, especially Droll. I think like these being retrained Maxis is like whatever. At least you can only use them going second. But Droll, like when you have this card and you go first, this card is ridiculous. Like playing into it when you're going first is hard enough for a decent amount of decks, but I think it's fine because like some of the decks, if Droll like wasn't a thing, would just like FTK you anyway. So I think it's okay. A lot of decks can make like little half boards under Droll and the Charmies, so I think that's okay. But um, I'd like to see Droll have like the Mulcharmy clause where you can only use it when you control no cards or something. I think that would balance it at least some. But yeah, I just think like these kind of cards and then like Lancia as well for like this format in particular with Malice. Like these have been the most played cards in the format for good reason because the other ones, like I said, just don't do anything. And just the whole draw the out type of gameplay is not really interesting for anyone. So I don't know. I think that the direction that the power creep's been going in, just making like these have to be the only cards that do anything, has just been really bad for the game. And then like you'll see Ash played still simply because it can negate these cards, which kind of leads me into one of my next issues with the game when it comes to the opposite end of going second, which is going first, is this card essentially acting as 3 more copies of Crossout and Call By. And I think these 2 cards are the single most going first toxic card in the game. I think both of these should be banned because they are extremely stupid. The point of hand traps is to give you a chance going second to stop your opponent. And when they open these cards going first, it just makes it even more overpowered than it already is. So I don't know why these cards are still legal. The whole like hand trap mini game is just awful to play. Um, and if the hand trap's actually resolved, then maybe the game would be more balanced. But with cards like this in the game, and then like Ash can negate these, so you're basically just playing Go Fish and seeing who wins the hand comparison mini game, and then the game's kind of decided there a lot of the time. Then another one is like Talents. I feel like this card's kind of similar to these, but it's not as bad. I think this card should definitely be limited and not allowed at more copies, but I think it's okay being limited just because of Thrust existing, kind of. I think it's like whatever. But these two I definitely think should get banned. So that's like one of the things with going first, like your hand traps that you need to try to have a chance just sometimes don't resolve because of stuff like this. So that makes going second even harder than it needs to be. And then another issue with going first is post side. You just have stuff like this, where it's like, this is representing a Harpy's Featherstorm since I don't actually own one. D-Barrier, Sanctum, Different Dimension Ground, Mistaken Arrest, just lingering floodgates, which is the same thing that I just showed you with the going second cards that actually do something. They're all just lingering floodgates pretty much. Except these type of cards, when you go first post side, is just the reason why like the side deck has kind of just become a pretty toxic thing, because you're just siding stuff like this in, just more auto win cards. And if you see any of these type of cards, like you just win the game. Like if you're playing against Malice and they open Mistaken Arrest, they just set this and then they flip it and you can't do anything. There's like almost no counterplay to this card. And same thing with Ryzeal, just setting up a Featherstorm, just stuff like that. Like it's just uninteresting gameplay. I don't think anyone enjoys going against stuff like this. They probably don't enjoy playing it either, but people will do whatever it takes to win a children's card game. So this is the type of stuff that you'll see a lot post side, and just a reason why games 2 and 3 can be pretty toxic, and why a lot of people think the side deck kind of sucks. So yeah, like just the lingering floodgates when you're going first or second are just like, that's what the core mechanics have been for like this format, is who can resolve their lingering floodgate, and that's just not fun for anyone. So go into another issue with the game right now, which I hope they address this stuff in the ban list, is just like generic cards kind of bridging all these broken engines together. Because cards like Mitsurugi cards, they just don't have locks in them for some reason. So you could just splash these cards together and then you have 3 broken engines that just work perfectly together. It's kind of like Snake Eyes, again, when like Fiendsmith got introduced and stuff like that, where like the new broken engine just kind of fits right into the existing broken engine perfectly for whatever reason. Because they don't just put any locks in these cards or balance them at all. So you just kind of put everything together and it just works. So cards like Duo Drive, I don't know why they made this generic, but if they didn't make it generic, then it'd be fine. But since you can just do any 2 level 4s into Ryzeals, you can just splash this into any deck that puts out level 4s, and then you get to just do Ryzeal stuff. Similar to King of the Feral Imps with Habanero. Any deck that puts up level 4s, you could just play Mitsurugi in it and then search this with your other combo. And then you have a 1-card Mitsurugi that just does everything. Then again, Infernal Flame Banshee, this can also search the Ryzeals. And another toxic thing that this card can do is search Nemesis Flag, which in turn gets you to Protos, because Konami thought it was a good idea to unban this card for whatever fucking reason. So it's just like these generic cards that kind of are bridging everything together right now, I think are the main problem, like with the Mitsurugi and Ryzeal and stuff like that. Like if these 3 cards were banned, I think both Mitsurugi and Ryzeal would be a lot more healthy, to a degree at least. So you couldn't just splash them and everything together. And then Protos not being searchable would be nice as well. And then like if you only hit Banshee or only hit duo. Like the other one can just search the Ryzeals anyway, so you kind of have to hit like all these. Another one's like Gallon Granite, which isn't as bad, but that card searching you Nibiru going first is pretty annoying. Can search you Fossil Dyna if you didn't normal summon, then you can just normal summon a Floodgate, which is toxic as well. So yeah, just these are like the biggest problem with the game right now. Is just the cards that kind of just bridge you into being able to play all the broken one card combo engines together. So I'll kind of go into like the individual decks now. I think Mitsurugi as a whole, like if these cards were banned, would be fine. I think Prayers is a card that should probably get hit, but I think that putting it to 2 would be okay. I think putting it to 1 is actually pretty harsh for like pure Mitsu. If you do like hit these other cards, because if this card's at 1, that's kind of really bad for Mitsu, because a lot of the time you do go through 2 in a turn. So, but this is like these are the only cards that you would really consider hitting as far as like a Mitsurugi card, and I don't think hitting Habakiri makes sense at all, because there's so many ways to get to this, but Prayers is like the god card. If you open this card, you're just playing through Droll a lot better, and just in general, this card's just crazy. Then the next stupid deck that nobody likes is Malice. This is another one that's really hard to hit. It's kind of how they design these archetypes lately. They're just really hard to hit with ban lists. But I think with Malice, you probably have to just ban Whitebinder, unless they go after just random Cyberse Link 2s like Splash Mage or maybe Cyberse Wicked or something. There's just no real way to hit the deck other than just doing more consistency hits like they did last time, but I don't think that's a really good way of doing it either, because when you're hurting the consistency, you're just making it so the deck's doing the thing less often, but when they get to do the thing, they're still doing the soft FTK, so it's not really solving anything. I think if you ban Binder, at least it's kind of like forcing the deck to play a little bit differently. Since they only play like one MTP a lot of the time anyway, they can still kind of make the same end boards without Whitebinder. It just hurts other aspects of the deck. But if they were going to ban like a Malice card, I think this would be the one to do. But yeah, Malice is frustrating to play against. I don't think anyone really likes playing against it. And then you see like it's a Master Duel now and it's like tier 0, so that's fun. So next one is Fiendsmith. I think Fiendsmith, in my opinion, is really not that bad. But if I were to hit something in Fiendsmith, it would be Moon or Wave King Caesar. I think these are like the only parts of the Fiendsmith engine that are problematic. But even so, I think if they decided not to hit Fiendsmith again, it'd be fine, because it has kind of fallen off a good amount. And the engine does have a lot of counterplay, and it doesn't do like anything super crazy. Like if you just open a Fiendsmith card, you're just setting up like Caesar and a Paradise if you play it. It's really not that much. But just being able to just turn 2 random bodies into Moon, and then being able to turn that Moon into Caesar is a little bit annoying, I guess. Mainly because like it kind of invalidates Nibiru, which is whatever, I guess. But yeah, I think these are like the only 2 ban-worthy cards in Fiendsmith. I don't think like people suggest to like limit Engraver or something. I think that's just stupid. A lot of decks just play like 1 Engraver, 1 Lacrima, 1 Saint maybe nowadays anyway, because you could just bridge it with Moon. So I think the way to solve that would just be to get rid of the Moon to begin with, so people can't do that anymore. But if you want to be able to just let 2 bodies go into Fiendsmith combo, I think Caesar would be a good card to get rid of, because this is like the most overpowered part of what the engine is capable of doing, because Caesar's such a strong card individually. So those are like the main engines in the game. Like Raziel, I think if you're like hitting these cards, you don't really need to hit anything else. Maybe hit X to 1, because this card's kind of broken when you go second, especially. But I think just the generic search cards are like the main problem with Raziel. So that's like the individual main decks, I guess. And then just kind of go over a few of the other decks of what they're doing, which is just like not promoting healthy gameplay at all. It's like barrier statues. I don't have, or I have the water one somewhere, but I couldn't find it, so just throw the wind one out there just to kind of show, like, just these type of cards in general. They're just not fun at all. Like Mermails doing the water one. Ryzeal sometimes is searching Fossil Dyna, which is pretty much like a baby barrier statue. And just nothing's fun about that. The rank 4 decks are playing this card, which is just a hand rip, and then with Eclipse Twins, you can kind of loop this a few times and just rip your opponent for 2-3 cards. And hand rippings, there's nothing fun about that either. That's another thing that Mermail does, which, you know, it's just a stupid game mechanic that shouldn't really exist. But that's another thing like the rank 4 decks are doing. Another card that the rank 4 decks like to make is Baguska. This card is just, again, it's just uninteresting. There's outs to it, but you usually have to kind of work for that. And then if it's paired with anything else, it's kind of annoying to deal with. Especially with the new deck, Lunalight. They have a Towers monster that's unaffected by everything besides Lunalight effects. And it also has 3,800 attack, 3,500 defense, and has a Raigeki attached to it. And that's not soft once per turn, or it is soft once per turn. So you can just end on 2 of those to go with your Baguska. So you might have an out to Baguska, you might have an out to a Towers, but when you have both of them together, it's extremely hard to out without drawing super specific non-engine type cards, which is just not fun at all. And the deck deals with hand traps very well, unless you draw like certain ones to interact with like some of their specific cards, like in the pendulum scales and stuff like that, or banishing stuff from their graveyard, which you can do to kind of help cut stuff off. But again, it's kind of like you have to draw these specific cards, or they get to Baguska and the Towers Raigeki guy, and then you just kind of have to draw that out, and it's just uninteresting gameplay again. Like, that's what a lot of these decks are doing. It's just stuff that you hope to see the outs in your hands, or you just sit there and can't do anything, and that's just not, there's nothing fun about that. So those are like my main gripes, I guess, with the game right now. Hopefully the ban list is soon. I have a bad feeling that we might have to wait longer because like the NAWCQ is this weekend, and then after that the EU WCQ is 2 weeks from after that. So I think it'd be unfair to Europe to do a ban list before that, unless they do it like before and then don't make it into effect until after the EU WCQ. And then if they do that, that'd be fine. That'd give people a month to prepare for Worlds, which is okay. But if not, they can't really wait longer than that, because then that's not fair to the people that are preparing to go to Worlds. And then we might have to wait until September to get a list, which would really suck because we really need one right now. And then in a month, we're getting Justice Hunters, which is the canine stuff, Yummy, Dragon Tail, which I think that stuff's like probably fine, but at least it'll be new and maybe it'll be a breath of fresh air. But the game currently as it is just not really fun to play for the most part, with the hand comparison, draw the out type of format. So I think that's a good place to kind of end it. Let me know in the comments if you agree with any of this stuff, or if you feel the same way and haven't really been playing as much as of late like I have. But yeah, it's gonna be it for this one. Thanks for watching. Take care. Peace.